I pressed the hotkey to start recording and it also typed in there. Well, anyway, now I've got to check if I'm recording. Yes, I am. Okay, right. Good start. Well, welcome back, Weirds and Weebies, to the channel of the Bitchin' Dojo. Today, I do not have enough energy to do a proper video, and conveniently, there's been a balance patch, so now I can just talk about this balance patch instead. Although, sorry if I'm late to this. I have not touched Undercards for a bit, so I don't know if this balance patch was recent or it happened a little bit ago. Hopefully, I'm not too late to it. Anyway, there's a lot of changes I kind of didn't expect here. In fact, we're starting off straight away with a change that really caught me off guard. The soul cages that Soulless Chris summons have gone down to 3/3s from 4/4s, which, wasn't expecting that. So, Soulless Chris is an 8/4/10 with haste, and they give the opponent an artifact called Outbreak, which forces them to play a soul cage every single turn, past turn 10. If it's earlier than turn 10, it doesn't trigger because you'd be able to kill the opponent too quickly that way. And every single time you kill a soul cage, for each turn that has passed since you gave them the Outbreak artifact, they take 1 damage. So basically, it's a guaranteed way to kill someone as long as you can kill enough soul cages, but it's not very fast is the downside to it to try and balance it out. I'm not gonna lie, I don't get this buff. Like, I'm not gonna complain, because I do like playing Soulless Chris, but this seems a bit strong. Like, I already thought Soulless Chris was one of the best cards in the game. Not stupid, overpowered, but definitely on the upper end of strong cards. Just the fact that they alone are a win condition in a game where I feel like it's very hard to make long game win conditions that aren't like super slow like Mill or on OTKs. Like, it feels like Soulless Chris is one of the few cards that's just like, you can win the game just based on Soulless Chris on his own, no combo needed, and yes, it's going to be slow, but it's not going to be quite as slow as having to mill your opponent, which would be so slow that it would be unrealistic. So yeah, I don't think Soulless Chris needed a buff, and I'm a little bit scared that they buffed him. But, again, I like playing Soulless Chris, so I'm not going to complain. To be fair, will this change much? I think there's a decent chance this won't change much, because I don't see that many cards in this game that deal exactly 3 damage. The only ones that come into mind straight away is Walk Sign, I think it was called. Deal 3 damage to yourself to deal 3 damage to a monster. There's that one. And there's definitely at least one more that I'm trying to think of. Oh yeah, Clover. That's the one I'm thinking of. So there's those two come to mind straight away. I know there's more than that, but those are the only two that like pop into my mind straight away. But I feel like a lot of the time, if it's more than 2 health, then you can probably... There isn't that much difference between, like, 3 and 4, I think. I think a lot of the time, it's not going to change much, which might be why they think this is a fine change. I think one thing that they might not have taken into consideration, though, is the attack value. Because the fact that the attack's gone down to 3, as well as the health going down to 3... It's kind of nasty, honestly, like, because one of the only things with Soul Cage, and I feel like one of the only things that balance Soulless Chris out, is that, to be fair, if you couldn't kill your opponent with the burn fast enough, you are giving them a free 4/4 every single turn, which is a lot of stats to deal with if you don't have the tools to, well, deal with it. So that was the one thing, was that you couldn't just be losing a game terribly as a Soulless Chris deck, and then just slap down Soulless Chris and turn the table straight away, because you were already losing on board, and you were already worried that your opponent would outrace you and kill you before you can get enough damage from Soulless Chris. Then doing it like this way, and, playing Soulless Chris, like, to try and get the damage counter up earlier than maybe you should, could lead to your opponent getting enough stats on board to finish the job. Now that it's 3... it might make it less often that, like, people get punished for doing that. So again, I really feel like this Soulless Chris is already strong enough, and I'm not sure why they buffed him, but again, I guess I'm fine with it, because again, I think Soulless Chris is very fun. I'm a little bit wary that there might be something really degenerate that you can do with this now. I don't know, like, I suppose it doesn't change the ability much, but just, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, Soulless Chris started becoming a little bit too common. Then we have a card that I didn't think would be seeing changes to anytime soon. Angel of Death. It makes sense, to be fair, because this seemed to be the... Yeah, this is probably the worst determination card. Like, I kind of hate to say it, because, like, it's not that bad or anything, but, like, yeah, you'd probably pick any other determination card besides this. So, yeah, I think it did deserve a buff, but for some reason it just felt like, I don't know, unless I'm remembering wrong, I don't remember any kind of buffs or nerfs this card ever received. Like, I don't know, I feel like they don't touch this card much, so I kind of felt like they'd just forgotten about it at this point. But they haven't. So it's gone down from 16 cost to 14 cost, and its ability, if you didn't already know, is to summon an exact copy of a monster, and when it dies, it fills your board with random lost souls. So, here's the thing. So, this could actually be really good, but I think we might just be dreaming a little bit too much here. Okay, the thing with Angel of Death is, they aren't terrible, because even though it's not very useful to be able to summon an exact copy of a monster for 14, yes, an exact copy is amazing, the Vessel is a good determination card, but an exact copy of a monster for 14, even if you get all these stats with it, is kind of clunky, and yeah, it's not ideal. The main thing, though, I think with Angel of Death, the main takeaway with it, is that it is a big body that you're probably going to play when you already have a monster on the board, and then you're going to get a copy of that. And even if that monster was only, like, small, medium-sized, you now have a board that your opponent really can't ignore. They have to kill your board now. And if they kill your board, they then trigger Angel of Death's Dust, and it fills the entirety of your board with Lost Souls, which originally I didn't think this Dust ability was very strong, but I keep forgetting that Lost Souls are 3/3s. They're only 1/1s when they're summoned for Determination's ability. So, yeah, they come out as 3/3s, and a full board of 3/3s, that's 12 damage on board. So even when they kill your entire board, they still have to kill another whole board, otherwise there's a good chance you might have lethal looking at them next turn. So, yeah, that's kind of the way that Angel of Death could be good, is it's just something that it has two boards in a row that your opponent has to deal with or die. And obviously there's not that many decks that are going to have the resources to be able to clear two boards in a row. The only problem is, again, you need to already have something on the board, and then you also need to save up all the money to play this. It going down from 16 to 14 is going to make it a little bit less unrealistic that you can play this. Really hard to evaluate this one. I'm really trying to think, like, I want to say this is actually a good card now, but it's just awkward because it's a determination card, and you can only run one. And I'm trying to think, is this still the worst determination card despite that? Honestly, I could be wrong here, unless there's still some other, like, use or combo with, like, Undying the Undying that I don't know, after they removed the potato chisp combo. I think this is at least better than Undying the Undying now. I don't know if I'd say it's better than any other determination cards. Like, I do see how it could make a strong board, but again, the exact copy ability would be really strong if it wasn't on something that costs so much. It's just so clunky, because you want to copy a big monster with that to get the best value out of it, but if you're going to try and copy a big monster, you're going to have to spend so much gold to get that big monster on the board, have it not die, and then also get enough money to play this. It's like, ugh. I think I'm going to stick with it. I think that this card probably still won't see that much play, but I think it definitely deserved the buff, and I don't have anything against this buff. Part of me almost thinks maybe it could go down to 13, but then I do have to remember that would be the same cost as something like Jevil, and yeah, this card does seem stronger than Jevil. But again, it is a determination card. You can only have one in the deck if you're playing ranked, so like it might be justified to make it that strong. Well, anyway, then there's Bloxer, which it's nice to see this one got buffed, because this card was not what I was expecting to see buffed, but I always felt like this card had potential to be really good in future, but I just didn't have everything it needed. I'm speaking really badly right now, but it just didn't have anything it needed. It's can resummon a monster that costs 3 or less gold in your dust pile. Well, you get to choose one of 3 at random. And it was a 7/5/4, but now it's a 6/5. It's a small buff, you could say, but honestly, that's some scary stats, honestly. I mean, even if you just bring back a 3/4, that's a 7 cost 9/9. That's pretty good. Remember that, like, pre-nerf Susie was like a 7 cost 8/8 with a downside. You know, it's just good stats. I mean, the main thing with Bloxer for me was just, what do you bring back with it? And before, I think Pure Stats was one of the better options, but still, Pure Stats was not really the ideal option, because before, if you brought back a 3/4 with Bloxer, that'd be a 7/8/8 in total. And don't get me wrong, a 7/8/8 is good, but, like, for something that you're building your deck around, that is kind of underwhelming. So 7/9/9 makes it a bit better, but I think the main problem is we just need to find 3 drops, or not even necessarily, doesn't even necessarily have to be 3 drops, but 3 drops would make the most sense. We just need to find 3 drops that you really want to, like, get as many copies of as possible, that don't have magic abilities or delay abilities as the thing you want them for, because obviously then you won't trigger them from summoning them. And we just don't have that many of those, I don't think. Like, I haven't looked through the entire collection, so maybe I'm forgetting about something. I've forgotten if C rounds got changed since I last looked at them. I guess you could use this with C rounds. Yeah, anyway, I think it definitely deserved the stat boost, and I think that as soon as we find, like, a 3 cost or less monster that we actually really want to resummon, I think this card is instantly going to become really effective. It's just a question of finding that thing and what it is. Kara also got buffed. Kind of didn't expect this one. Magic, silence and kill a monster, delay at the genocide artifact. Okay, so you might find this a bit surprising, because I did say that I think that Kara is also one of the stronger determination cards and one of the slightly more overpowered ones. I know some of you might raise an eyebrow at that, because I just recently unlocked Kara and I literally, like, haven't used them. But that's mostly come down to the fact that by the time I unlocked Kara, we transitioned into a much faster meta where you don't have time to play Kara and not die. So yeah, it was kind of bad timing. But anyway, I'm actually not mad about this buff, even though I do think that Kara was a bit strong, because this buffs them in an area that I don't think they were overpowered in. I think basically this buff makes it so that when you play this card, you don't die as often. You, like, just the turn you play it. Now, I think my main problem with the design of Kara is that pre-nerf, and still technically now, but more pre-nerf, it was such a polarizing card. Either you would never get to play it, you would get to play it, but the turn you play it, you die before you get to use the Genocide Artifact, or you would get to use the Genocide Artifact. And if you got to the point of using the Genocide Artifact, it was practically a guaranteed win. I kind of hated how it was that polarizing, how, like, because it's just one of those cards that, like, it just was frustrating whenever I saw it. Every time I saw it, it's like, oh, I've lost the game. And every time I didn't see it, it was probably because I won before the opponent got to play it, but they probably had it in their deck. So, you know, I actually am in support of this change, because it makes it a little bit less polarizing. You can have moments where you can actually play Kara to stay alive, while also getting the Genocide Artifact. We just might have to see if there's some way that we can tone down the Genocide Artifact a bit. I mean, I understand why it is as strong as it is, because it is a determination card, and it is taking your health, so technically there is a limit, but it just, starting from 1 and only taking max health, it takes so long for it to actually add up to a significant health loss. I mean, you can kill 4 things with a Genocide Artifact before you even lose 10 health. And yeah, it does quickly snowball from there. Once you kill 5, now you've lost 15, now 21, and if you try and kill 8, then you're dead. But, like, it takes a while for it to build up, so Anyway, Spade Chain has also been reworked, and it's been labelled as a buff. 10 cost, 4/9 haste. Magic, deal 4 damage to a monster. Deal 1 extra damage for every 3 gold it costs. Right, so if I remember right, this used to be a 4/8. Yeah, it did. And it used to deal damage equal to half the cost of a monster, and I don't remember if it was rounded up or rounded down. And honestly, I think that Spade Chain was alright like that. The main problem was just, like, having enough money to play it. Like, it was a decent control card, and it had good stats and everything. It's just, it costs 10, and it's not a win condition, it just keeps you alive. And so, it's just a lot to spend. It's like, if you had a deck where you could get that much money relatively easily, yeah, you'd be completely fine to put Spade Chain in. It's a decent card, but, like, there's just not that many decks where you needed Spade Chain and you also had enough money that 10 gold wasn't a bit steep. Personally, I would have reduced the cost of this a bit. Still have it be expensive. I think that's part of its identity, but, like, 8, I feel like would have been a good cost for this. But this buff, I guess, is also, it helps, even though I think I prefer a cost reduction. I'm not going to lie, though, I don't know if this is much of an improvement. I mean, the 1 extra health is nice, the guaranteed at least 4 damage is nice, but, I don't know, is a 10-4-9 haste deal, like, 5-6 damage? Good. If it has to be to a monster and it can't hit face. I don't know if it is. Because, like, with the... Honestly, in some ways, this could be regarded as a nerf. I do understand why it's labelled as a buff, and I will say that overall it probably is a small buff, but it could be considered a nerf because the damage scaling is reduced. The old version scaled more. Like, it could get... It could... If you had a really high-cost monster, it would deal even more damage to it than this would, even though against most monsters, this new version will deal more damage. And, I feel like that's one of the only reasons that, like, you might have wanted to use Spade Chain is if your opponent drops like a Kara or something, then you've got a lot of damage there. I don't know, actually, to be fair, like, it would have to be really expensive to make it I don't know, it doesn't seem that impressive to me. I think it's not going to change. I think we're still not going to see Spade Chain very much, despite the buff. I think it could have used a bit more. And again, I think it could use a cost reduction, most importantly. Even if it's just a 9, even though I think 8 should be what it costs. A cost reduction to 9 even would be fine. I'm not sure really why they buffed the health as well. Like, again, I'm not complaining. It's a nice little thing, but I just feel like it already has 8. It didn't really need another 1 health. Innkeeper has been buffed. Oh, and I think that's new art as well. Well, I say new art. The book at least, and the table wasn't there before. Anyway, gives yourself plus 5 HP. So, now I'm very interested, because I actually still have not played around with Stickman, to know if the Dancing Stickman token you get from it actually increases your maximum health. Because I thought it would when I read it, but then I thought, oh wait, no, Innkeeper says increase your maximum health by this much. But it looks like now it just says, actually wait. Oh no, I should have tested this before I started. Okay, right, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if this means heal 5 health or increase your maximum health by 5. No, it's got to be increasing maximum health by 5, because otherwise this is really bad, and it's labelled as a buff. And if I remember right, the kindness spell, the 1-cost one that gives plus 3 health to a monster or you. Yeah, okay, it's got to be increasing your maximum health. Well, anyway. Innkeeper, at first I was like, why are they buffing Innkeeper? Like, I feel like Innkeeper's already pretty good. But actually, I think it's kind of justified, because even though Innkeeper is pretty good, I think it's good for a good reason at the moment, and that is that we are in a meta where... Well, okay, I say that. Maybe I shouldn't say this so confidently, because I haven't been playing the past week or so very much at all. Maybe I'm about to be completely wrong. But at least it seems that we are generally in a relatively kind of fast meta. It's not as fast as it was last season, but last season was crazy fast. So, I would still say we're in a faster than average meta right now, where having more maximum health is especially useful. So I think that's the reason why I think Innkeeper was already good before the buff, and I think giving it even more of a buff actually is not actually a bad thing, even though at first it seemed like, oh, it doesn't need one. It's like, it is kind of annoying that when you just lose games just because your maximum health is only so high and your opponent just... has enough burst damage or whatever. I'm all for buffs to Innkeeper because it just it makes OTKs harder, and it makes rushing people down harder. And I mean, I don't know, aggro and rushing people down isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do think OTKs are almost objectively a bad thing if they are meta. For the, at least, you know, for the enjoyability of the game. So yeah. So I'm fine with this buff. And in fact, I might be trying this out a bit. I don't know, it's never really worked out, which kind of makes sense, but I've always loved the idea of just making a deck where I get a stupidly high health total and try and make like a control deck where I win in the long game with that. And it feels like it should work in theory, but I've never quite gotten it to work. I had like a version that was like a hand buff one with Noelle, the way you could get loads of healing off Noelle, and I had mill versions and all that, but it's never really took off. Maybe now's the time, especially because you can duplicate Innkeeper quite a lot using stuff like the purple guy to get duplicates of your epics, and then, I don't know, maybe you could use something like... Not Father Alvin. What's the other card that gets something back from your dust pile, but it puts it in your deck, not your hand? It's a jukebox. Yeah, jukebox. I could use jukebox with it or something. Sounds like it could be interesting. Anyway, the Lost Souls have all been updated so that they do not target monsters that are already dead with their dust abilities, which I'm all for that. Part of me thinks it's a little bit clunky that they have to specify living, but I think overall I'm in favour of it because Lost Souls do feel like they don't have that much of an impact on the game unless it goes long enough that you get multiple like Sans Lost Souls, because that feels like the only one that's like, oh wow, I get a Gaster Blaster. So the fact that the weaker ones now are going to whiff less, I actually do like. There was some kind of strategy to, like, baiting them into trying to damage things that are already dead but haven't been removed from the board yet, but, like, at the same time, again, it just made them feel a lot less impactful when they already were a little bit naff. Anyway, Toxic Cloud has been buffed. I believe that... I don't remember what the name of the spell is. Okay, right, well, it comes up anyway, good. Pollutant Gas is the spell that summons Toxic Clouds, if you don't remember. Oh, I have to stress this out a bit. Well, I mean, actually, it just says it there, so I'll leave it. So Toxic Clouds are 2-cost 1/1s with Haste and Taunt, and what they used to do was they would just give their killer KR, but now they also give their killer -1/-1. This is because KR and Perseverance have been completely reworked this balance patch. I don't know how I feel about the rework. So let me scroll down and show you. I'll actually skip ahead to this just because it's kind of important for the context of the other cards coming up. So Perseverance has been changed. So the effect update, I mean, to be fair, the effect is basically the same thing. At the start of every turn, give KR to the highest attack enemy monster that doesn't have KR. The only difference, I think, is that it triggers regardless of whether a monster has KR already or not. And KR has been changed so that it no longer gives -1 attack and it no longer makes something take extra damage. Now, if a monster with KR dies, then whatever killed it gets +1/+1. If nothing killed it, or the thing that killed it is dead, it gives a random other living enemy monster +1/+1 instead. So, this is a bit of a weird one. Like, okay, I'm not going to complain. I am glad that they have changed it. I think that we did need Perseverance's ability to change. I do think KR was not alright as it was. I'm not sure if this is it, Chief. Now, I don't think this is overpowered. I'd be surprised if it is. I might eat those words soon, though. I don't think it's overpowered, but it does seem... It does seem the opposite. It seems kind of underpowered. Just because it's going to be difficult to balance board control with killing the enemies that have KR with also developing the stats of units already on your board. Like, if you're going to give loads of things KR and kill them all, then you probably don't have any units on the board to get the buffs. And if you have units on the board, you probably don't have any enemy targets with KR to kill. So it's like, it's a bit of a balancing act. Now, I could be wrong. There is one thing I can see, which is I'm imagining it like a control deck, because I feel like that's always what like Perseverance was supposed to be. It's supposed to kind of lean into control. But I might be thinking about it wrong. It might be that you don't run cards that give KR specifically, and you don't run like cards that kill units that have KR. Instead, all you do is you just simply you just run a normal tempo deck and get lots of free stats from making trades with the enemy with like high health units, and then surviving the trades and then getting buffed off of it. And to be fair, that might be enough. I mean, hey, it can snowball quickly, I guess, because the more buffs it gets, the more easy it is for it to make even more trades. And as it trades and trades and trades, it will just keep growing. And you're getting free KR every turn, regardless of whether something's already got KR or not. Maybe that is the case. But if that isn't the case, then yeah, I think that this might make Perseverance a bit underpowered. I mean, again, I'm in favour of this change overall. I do want to see them experiment with different kinds of KR, and I do think that this is going to be better than what we had before. But, anyway, I need to actually talk about the card we're talking about right now, Toxic Cloud. Yeah, it needed this. It was a super weak card before, and it definitely needed the -1/-1 boost, especially with KR itself getting nerfed. So I think that I'm glad they've done this. I think it's going to make this card actually kind of usable, although I still wouldn't recommend it unless you have specific synergy in mind. Alright, so those are the buffs, at least for the monsters, the small buffs later for other cards. Spider Sign has been changed. Spiders as a whole have kind of been changed. Spider Sign. Now, I'm not going to lie, I do not remember what this card did before. I'm pretty sure it was a turbo ability that shuffled another spider into your deck. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I did not like that. It kind of felt like I get if I have spider synergy it becomes more valuable, but like, why do I want more 1-cost 2 ones in my deck? Like, Now, this new ability I like a lot. I like this a lot. I appreciate this a lot more. Spider Sign is now an 8-cost 3/7, which is quite a knockdown in stats, but whenever you summon an arachnid, you give it +1 attack, but more importantly, whenever you play it, and at the start of every turn after that, it summons a token arachnid from your deck. And I saw that, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, that's a nice, cool ability. And for some reason, I kind of, the first thing I thought was that token arachnid would mean the 1/2 ones. I'm like, yeah, they're tokens. I'm like, wait, no, they're not, you can just run them in your deck. I was trying to think, wait, what spiders are even tokens? And then I realised what it actually meant by this, because technically there's no token spiders, but what there is Spider Croissant and Spider Donut are both tokens. And these are both the cards that are like, the spider cards shuffle more of them into your deck because you want them, because they're like especially strong. With that extra context, wow. Spider Sign seems potentially really good. Like, if spiders are good, I think it will be carried by this card, unless spiders are a super early game thing that can't afford an 8-drop. Because, wow, that is a lot of value. As long as you have tokens in your deck, as long as you have croissants and donuts in your deck, you can get some ridiculous amounts of free stats. This is a very powerful engine. And it will give them all +1 attack. Oh wow, and I just realised, if you summon a spider croissant, it'll get +1 attack, have haste, attack in, die, summon a spider, and that spider will also get +1 attack. That's an instant 8 damage. Wow. Yeah, I like the look of Spider Sign. And, oh, it's an epic as well, so you can duplicate it with the purple guy. Oh. You gotta tell I like using the purple guy. Okay, Spider Reporter has also been reworked, which I'm also happy to... Oh wait, no. I just realised I do not even remember what Spider Sign is, because I'm pretty sure now I'm saying it that Spider Reporter was the one that has Turbo shuffle a spider into your deck. I don't know. Well, anyway, he's been reworked. He still has the same stats, but now they've got haste, and when played, they will add a Spider Croissant to your deck. Very straightforward, but worthwhile, I think. I would have said this seemed just kind of meh if it weren't for the fact we also just saw Spider Sign, and we're seeing that we're really going to get some synergy with these Spider Donuts and Spider Croissants. I wonder if what I said to the devs kind of was taken on board, because I was mentioning how I think shuffle mechanics are extremely fun, and I'd like to see more of them, and I think we have been seeing quite a few of those recently, so thank you if my input was what led to that. Anyway, yeah, I don't have much to say about that. It just seems good. With the support that exists, I think that will really push that up to an actually good card. I mean, a 4 Oh, just a moment. Right, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to... It's gonna be awkward like that. Okay, right. So, yeah, the Spider Reporter, I just think a 4/4/3 haste is already kind of decent. Not great, but decent. And I think Spider Croissant is a really, really good card, especially in combination with Spider Sign, so that should be good. Muffet has also been changed, and I'm glad to see it, because I don't even remember the last time I put Muffet in a deck. It's now got 7 attack and 10 health, which, is less, but less attack, but more survivable. Still has haste, and when played, and at the end of every turn as well, add a Spider Donut to your hand and a Spider Croissant to your deck. So, I have mixed feelings about this. I think overall this looks really strong, but the only thing is, I actually think this would be better if it shuffled both into your deck. I think the fact that it puts Spider Donuts in your hand might actually be a downside, just because it's magic and turn end. Once you play Muffet, Muffet is going to put 2 Spider Donuts into your hand if you don't have and if you don't have the hand space, you're gonna mill. Actually, no, wait. Actually, no, that's fine. I'm so used to playing decks where you can't mill your cards because you need them all, but if you're playing a Spider deck, you're not scared about milling, are you? Yeah, okay, so the point I was going to make was Muffet is a 9-cost card, which isn't cheap, that puts 2 more cards in your hand that cost 4. So unless you pay a total of 17, you are adding more cards to your hand, and those cards are just going to take up spots. You're going to struggle to empty your hand, and then you might, mill a card that you really need. But to be fair, it looks like in the Spider deck, there isn't really a single card that you can't mill, otherwise you'll die. Except maybe Muffet, but then you're playing Muffet, so you haven't milled Muffet. So, yeah, I suppose you could just get away with taking the hit on that. Yeah, actually, never mind, that's good. I'm also quite glad that they chose to make it this way around, where the Spider Donut's what goes to your hand, and the Spider Croissant is what goes to your deck. I know that's probably on purpose, but the Spider Donut makes way more sense in your hand, because it has a delay ability. It would only activate its ability if you played it from your hand, not if it's summoned from the deck. And also, it's the one that helps you stay alive more. Well, the Spider Croissant also gives you board control, which indirectly helps you stay alive, but you know what I mean. The Spider Donut is the one that heals you and also has Taunt. So it makes more sense to get that one earlier on to stay alive. So yeah, I think this looks quite strong. The only problem I have with it is it costs 9. Everything about this seems really powerful, just except the fact that... How do you build your deck with this? Because, it feels like Spiders are supposed to be mid-range by the look of this. They're supposed to be a mid-range tempo deck. You're supposed to fight for the board. But this is 9. It's getting a little bit expensive. And it has an effect which takes a long time to really pay off because it's shuffling stuff into your deck. Unless you have enough Spider Signs to pull that stuff out really quickly. I don't know, it's just kind of... It's a little bit weird. It's I think you might be able to get away with it, to be fair, because you're probably running a decent amount of the 1-cost Spider, and that will help you empty hand slots. But I'm a little bit worried that even though Muffet is really good in theory, it might be one of those cards where in the best version of the deck, you actually don't run it, because even though it's a great card, you have to slow down your game plan to run it, and you just can't afford to do that. It might work out that way. Anyway, Spider Flower has also been reworked, and I would say buffed overall. Am I... Spider Flower? Oh, wait. Bleh, I'm an idiot. There we go. So, it is now a 3/2 instead of a 2/2. And it now, instead of summoning a flower unit that's either a 1/1 or a 3/3 with a transparency, it will choose a plant or arachnid costing 4 or less gold from your hand and summon it and draw a card. I missed that it said synergy. Oh, okay, so that does bring this down a bit, because I was about to say this card looks amazing. Now, it still looks good. It's not as crazy as I thought. I don't know how I missed the synergy. So, in case you don't remember, because to be fair, you don't see synergy that much. Synergy is this monster will trigger its effect when played, and if an ally monster of the same tribe has been played this turn. That's okay. That's actually not phrased very well. Basically, unless you've already played a spider or a plant this turn, the two tribes it has, you will not get this ability. This will just be a 4/3/2 if you don't play it with a spider or with a plant on the same turn. But this ability is really good because I just mentioned how I feel like one of the main problems is going to be just emptying your hand. And this is, well, it's perfect for that. You essentially play a card from your hand for free, and then you also get another card in its place. So that seems really good. Like, one of the main problems with cards that pull things out your hand a lot of the time is they can be really strong, but essentially it's kind of like you discarded a card because you used a card just to get another card out your hand more easily, and that's two cards you use to play one card, kind of. So, it can have a problem where you, run out of cards too quickly if you're running something like that. I like how this essentially makes one card in your hand free to play and also gives you another one in its place. So yeah, this seems like it's going to be really good for getting on the board, and it's very well designed to synergize with everything else because the Spider Donut and Spider Croissant are, of course, costing that magical 4 amount, so you're getting the maximum value if you use it on those, which is even more incentive to shuffle more of them in. I like the look of this new Spider package. I don't know if it'll be very strong. I think it should be strong in theory, but the problem is I'm just wondering if it's too slow. Because a lot of the really good ones, again, the best one I think is Spider Sign, and Spider Sign costs 8, and it's just... I want it to be good, but I have to realize it costs 8. It might not get there. By the time you're playing an 8-drop, it might just not be... You might not really be playing for the board so much. Well, anyway, that's the Spider package, but they also reworked Great Door. I say reworked, it's not really changed much. All that's happened is it's gone back to its old version, where instead of always summoning one with the highest cost that's less than Great Door, now it summons a random one again. Kind of makes sense. I have mixed feelings on this. I like Great Door as a card, so I'm a little bit sad that they've nerfed it, because, it's a cool card, and it's going to be seeing less play now they've nerfed it. They say that they put this in yellow like it's oh, it's not really a nerf, it's more a rework, it's different, but it's not necessarily worse. It's worse. It has one more attack, I guess, than what it had before if you already had a deck that would already always pull the highest thing, but yeah, I think this is definitely weaker. That doesn't mean you can't run it, but it means now you can't just put it in a deck very easily. Now you have to make your deck a Great Door deck. Now you have to make sure you have no monsters costing less than 5 that are going to muddy up your pool. You want to only be summoning those big monsters. I've always wondered if you should try running a deck where you increase the cost of Great Door on purpose to pull bigger things out, but I don't think it's ever been worthwhile for any reason. It's a cool idea. But, well, anyway, Great Door, I understand this nerf, this rework, because it did become near an auto-include, because it was so easy to put it into a deck when it changed to only summon ones that cost the most out of the ones it can summon. Because now you didn't have to worry about what monsters were in your deck. You just had to worry about, do I have a 5-drop in my deck? Which is pretty easy. And then you just drop the Great Door, and it's just extra free stats and deck thinning. So I completely understand why they felt the need to do this. I just liked Great Door. I'm a little bit disappointed, but I think this is a fair change. And Great Door probably still will see some play in decks that just so happen to already not really run any monsters that cost less than 4. Or less than 5, and obviously running 5-cost monsters. Birdly has been changed to have 5 health instead of 6. That might hurt. It's hard to say. Let me just double check this. I'm pretty sure yeah. That might hurt. It's hard. Again, it's hard to say, but I get the feeling that might genuinely make Birdly a lot worse. It is just 1 health. If it was 1 attack that was taken off, I would say that's a fair nerf. I think Birdly's still going to be really good, though. The fact it's health they took off, I feel like that's the thing with Birdly. I think Birdly was so good because of that 6 health. I think at 5 health, it might be a little bit easier to kill him early. Like, I was thinking, nah, like, he should still live. I mean, things like Punishment, deal 4 damage, he'd still live. He'd have 1 health left, but then, you know, just his passive would trigger and ping him off. And I feel like there's a lot of ways that you can deal 4 damage in general, abouts, and there's a lot of ways you can get 1 extra damage, and I think that's why 6 was such a powerful kind of point to have. Just being knocked down to 5 might actually be quite significant for Birdly. Do I think it's trash now? Not quite, but I think that this is going to become a relatively seldom used card. I feel like now you will have to play Birdly for the ability. If you want to play Birdly now, I think you want to be playing it in a deck where you really got to save all the gold you can, and one where you're also running multiple spells, which is going to make its use case a lot more narrow. That's not a complaint, really. I mean, it should have been like that in the first place, arguably. Yeah, it's a deserved nerf, I will say. But I just realised I didn't actually look up what Box Body was. I'm guessing it's like a token or something. Oh, this one. Right, yeah. Huh. Was this overpowered? Huh. Okay, wouldn't have expected that. Well, that's been nerfed to have 1 less attack. Alright. Pickaxe. You got me excited. You got me excited. I saw Pickaxe in the nerf section. I'm like, oh my god! And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what's different. Apparently the effect has been updated. And it reads, whenever this attacks, add a gemstone to your hand. Let me just double check. Yeah, it is that gemstone. Shock, if this can't attack, gain haste. So, I'm trying to, like, I'm guessing the shock has been reworded, but, like, I genuinely, like, can anyone help me here? I really don't know what the change is here. Like, I don't want to jump the gun too much, because I understand that, like, oh, I shouldn't talk about this before I even know what the point of the change is, but, like, I can tell it's going to be something extremely minor if I'm rereading this over and over, trying to change, like, tell what's different. I'm pretty sure this is what their shock said at the start as well. Like, I think their shock said this in the past. Wait, doesn't this now mean that you can use this to unfreeze Pickaxe again? I'm so confused. This feels like a buff. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know, but basically they didn't nerf Pickaxe. it's labeled as a nerf, and there might be some extremely minor, barely noticeable change with it, but nah, it hasn't really been nerfed. Big disappointment. Anyway, Long Sink has been updated, and it's been nerfed, and there it is. It no longer gives itself health. It can still heal you, but that's all it does if it doesn't attack. I'm fine with this, actually. I was a little bit skeptical at first, seeing Long Sink down here. It is a very powerful card, but I thought, but it's kind of necessary as like a way to... First of all, it's a nice card for the free-to-play players because it's common and it's very effective and meta. And 2, it's kind of used to stay alive, and I think cards that are used to stay alive, unless they get obnoxious to the point where you literally can't kill the opponent, generally, I like to support those cards. So, I feel like even though Long Sink was one of the stronger cards, it was justified. And so when I saw it in the nerf section at first, I was wary. I was like, oh no, what have they done? But I'm not gonna lie, I'm fine with this. I think that the health increase with Long Sink, although it rarely did happen, occasionally could lead to situations where if the opponent just got the Long Sink down at the right time and you just don't have the right hand to deal with it, it could just snowball and become almost unkillable, and your opponent could get way more value than they should have been able to get in the first place off of it. Now, all that being said, I will clarify, I understand that is not common because it's literally only 1 health. But you know, you can say the same argument the other way. Oh, then why do you care about the nerf? It's literally only 1 health, you know. So yeah, I'm actually fine with this nerf. If they nerfed the healing, I would have been mad. If they nerfed the stats, I would have been mad. But they kept the stats, they kept the healing. The only thing that they nerfed was the snowball potential, which I'm actually completely fine with. So yeah, I'm in full support of this nerf. I think that long sync will still be good. It will just not be occasionally stupid. I'm not even sure this affects whether you put it or not in your deck at all. Because I don't think any deck puts long sync in with the plan of having it snowball its health. It just sometimes happens if you get lucky. And it not happening anymore, well, it probably will affect your win rate the tiniest bit. I don't think it'll actually affect your game plan or whether you'll run long sync in your deck. Snowell got nerfed, which, yeah, I could see that one coming. And it seems like a mostly pretty reasonable nerf. Essentially, now, when you trigger the delay by killing the paralyzed enemy monster, Snowell does not go back to your hand. Snowell goes back to your deck. I'm alright with that. I think that's quite fine. I think that it's a reasonable nerf because it doesn't actually make the card any weaker. In some ways it's helpful because, again, not getting your hand full, it's sometimes really awkward in Snowell decks to not burn cards because Snowell keeps coming back to your hand, but you keep paying to put her back down again. So having it go to a deck, I like it. It also makes it so that you can't get Snowgrave super fast, which I think was one of the main problems with Snowell. They felt a little bit strong just because, like, you could just get to Snowgrave so quickly. So yeah, if you couldn't tell, I'm a bit exhausted in the past few days, so I'm struggling to continue talking and keep my mind on track. So yeah, I think that returning to the deck is a very clever nerf to keep it, balanced and not gut the card. It's still capable of all the same things, you just can't rush to it quite as much. However, there's another nerf here, which I'm confused about. The ice crystals from Snowgrave has also been nerfed to not have armor anymore. I'm not gonna lie, I don't get this. Unless there was some kind of exploit to do with the armor I wasn't aware of, this seems unfair. Like, I don't know, maybe Snowell will still be good. If Snowell's still good, like, I might not understand just how good she is, because I haven't played enough this season. So, if she's still good, I'll stand by, I'll eat my words on that. But, I don't know, it feels like... Okay, if they didn't nerf Snowell herself, if she still returned to your hand, I would understand the armor nerf. I would be like, yeah, it deserves that. But, if it is going to be a late game thing, which I feel like is exactly what Snowell should be. Like, I don't think it should be something you rush to, so I do think they should take this route. I think you do nerf Snowell like you just did, but I don't think you need to nerf the ice crystals, because that's your win condition, and it's going to take a while to get to it. I don't think you need to nerf the win condition, make it harder for you to win after you put in all the work to get Snowell multiple times and cast Snowgrave. It's like... I don't know. I don't know if that's justified. I suppose at the same time, though, Snowell's conditions are quite easy to meet. They just take a bit. I don't know. I'm not super mad about this nerf, because I still think Snowell will be good. But just, I don't think they needed to remove the armor. I think that really helped the ice crystals be useful in the late game. And I feel like that's exactly when this should be useful, the late game. So, yeah. Spells have been buffed. Oh yeah, actually, before I get onto that, Snowgrave has also been nerfed itself. Although, I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't really change much. Essentially, it no longer burns a monster, it silences and kills a monster. Which is very similar to burning it, because the main difference between burn is that it doesn't trigger dust effects, and it doesn't send it to the dust pile. So essentially, this is exactly the same as burning it, except, obviously, it won't work on determination cards, and it won't send them to the dust pile. And it will send them to the dust pile. I am fully in support of this change. I think that burn is not something we should just have as something you can easily access whenever in all classes, or all souls, but however you want to say it. I don't think that you couldn't have a card that can burn an enemy card whenever you want, but I think that you'd have to have them in short supply, or have them be kind of a niche thing. I don't like the idea of having a card that having cards that burn things just as a regular thing. Like, Okay, I'll spill the beans here. If you didn't know, I quite like Mill and I quite like playing Frisk. I haven't been able to do it in a while because the meta's obviously been quite fast for a while now. But I really like Frisk I think they're a really fun card, and I love those extremely long game Mill games. And the existence of Snowgrave burning just meant, oh god, it was already bad trying to play Frisk before. Now just don't even try, because if your opponent burns Frisk, you've lost. you can't even bring it back with Resurrection and the Determination spell like I usually would if they did something to screw over my Frisk. Like, ugh, it's it's already bad enough that you have to watch out for Redbirds transforming your Frisk. Also having to watch out for Snowgraves, which are going to be run by a lot of people, which will just instantly eviscerate your Frisk. Just awful. I don't want to deal with that, so I'm so glad that it doesn't burn anymore. I think cards that burn instead of kill should be generally more expensive than they should be, quote unquote. Like, you know how Headshot costs six. Like, maybe like a spell for a soul that would just burn a monster should cost 8. And I know that might sound like a bit much, but I think it would still see some use every now and then as a card people just tech in every now and then, or maybe they get from bookcase, just because it would be that useful to kill something while also not triggering its dust, while also not even sending it to the dust pile. I generally don't think it should be an abundant mechanic, though, because I think it massively hurts interesting decks. There are so many decks you can make that could be more creative, but might have to rely specifically on one card to be built around to work, and that one card might need its dust ability to trigger, or it might need to go to the dust pile to work. And having burn exist everywhere as something that you can get in neutral on a card that's already good, and even if you weren't interested in the burn, you would run it anyway, so everyone's going to have burn, whether they plan to counter you with it or not. It's like, oh, it just kills interesting strategies, so I'm so glad they made this change even though it seems so small. Anyway, they buffed Buttercup Tree. I got a little bit excited when I saw that until I realised, wow, okay, they quote-unquote buffed it. They really didn't buff it much. All that happened, I'm not even sure why this is labelled as a buff. I feel like this should be labelled as a rework. So all that happened is the target, it used to give the monster who was giving KR +1 attack, because KR would give it -1 attack. And they didn't actually want to affect the attack, but they wanted to give it KR, so they cancelled out the -1 attack by giving it +1 attack, which is really convoluted and overcomplicated. But essentially now KR doesn't work like that. They obviously don't have to give the target +1 attack. And that's labelled as a buff because you're intended to use Buttercup Tree on enemies, and obviously now the enemy isn't getting an attack buff. Except that attack buff was negating an attack debuff, so really this is a nothing change. So, yeah. Brain Shift has also been buffed. It's the same as before, only now if one dies out of the two out of the enemy monsters that are forced to attack another one, then the one that survives gets silenced. Don't think this will change much, but I do think Brain Shift was already a good card, so it just means we'll probably see a little bit more of it. I don't know, silence can be really powerful. The only reason I'm saying I'm not confident that this is going to be super good is just it's not super easy, I suppose, to target this silence on exactly what you want. But actually, maybe this is a significant change, because, I don't know, silence is really powerful in this game. I don't know. Either way, I think this is a good change, and either way, I think Brain Shift is going to be seen more often. It's just a question of how much more often. And Worsening has been reworked, and I'm glad to see it, because I feel like it didn't make that much sense before with the way that Perseverance was. It gives -1/-1 to all enemy monsters. Again, this might be my input being took on board, because I did mention that I kind of like the idea of Perseverance being a controlled class that controlled using debuffs. That seemed kind of like their thing. They seem to all be about this idea of poison. So, I thought something like a board clear that is giving something debuffs to all enemy monsters would make sense. Now, that being said, does Worsening still cost 3? Okay, why is it not coming up? What have I got highlighted? I do not have any of these highlighted. Did I misspell it? Worsening. I don't know. Just a second. There it is. Yeah, it still costs 3. Alright, so is worsening any good? I don't know. I like it. I think it should cost 2. I don't know, it's just -1, -1. Like, I don't remember exactly what I suggested, but I remember when I was talking about some kind of debuff board clear, my suggestion was a 4 cost that gave -2, -1 to all enemy monsters, and then had some other ability, I don't even remember what it was. It was like, I don't know, if they had KR. Oh yeah, I think it was if they had KR, give them -3, -2 instead. Something like that. Now, I'm not saying, oh yeah, implement that exact card I just said right now, but like, I'm just saying that that is kind of the power level I would expect from these kind of board clears. I don't know, just -1, -1 is not a lot. It's essentially a 1 damage board clear with the extra benefit that you get some slightly reduced attack for anything that's left over, so that you're slightly less likely to not die. It's that kind of thing is fine for 2, but for 3, I think that's just a bit much. Do I think it's going to be a useless card? No, I think you'll still see some of it, but yeah, I like it. They really need to make it a little bit stronger. That's not very impressive. I just realised we're actually at the end now as well, since we already covered the Snowgrave change and the Perseverance change. So yeah, apologise for how off the cuff this video is. Again, still quite exhausted from what I've been through, so I will have some more videos done that are going to be some more high effort stuff in future, at least before Christmas most likely. So I'll see you then. Bye.